Well, hey YouTube, a quick intro to this. This is an older video. This is where I was getting ready to go to Squirrel Camp last year. I am currently getting ready to go to Squirrel Camp this year, Squirrel Camp 2025. This video that follows directly relates to a couple of videos I'm fixing to do. I'm fixing to go to the woods and shoot some videos. This directly relates to that, and it directly relates to Squirrel Camp 2025. I made a mistake. We'll find out about that later. Let's listen to an old man talk about stuff. Well, hey YouTube, what we're going to do today is we're going to start getting ready for Sean Dyer's Squirrel Camp. We've talked about the shepherd stove that I got and getting that shepherd stove and having the tabletop oven that I have already shown videos on. I'll link to one at the end of this video. I have volunteered to bake. There is absolutely nothing, in my opinion, that will augment, that will complement a backpacking, a camping meal other than good, hot, tasty baked goods. Breads, muffins, biscuits. Okay, not gonna make any cookies. Now, for the history part of this thing, I will tell you that anthropologists have noted that when discovering prehistoric villages where people grouped together, they would find two types of buildings. It's pretty much characterizes all of the group villages that they have found. These European anthropologies, these big prehistoric villages. Those two buildings would be, one was a granary and the other was a brewery. Okay, you needed to store the grain in order to make beer. Okay, you also needed to store grain in order to make bread. And the eternal debate among anthropologists is, did people start making bread and beer became an offshoot of that once they learned how they could use the grain to make beer? Or did they start making beer first and then realize they could use the grain to make bread? Nobody knows. What's your opinion? Okay, but bread has been what has held the human race together for millennia, for millions of years. Okay, the cultivation of grain and processing it into a flour and then turning it into something edible is what has held the human race together. There are three types of grains, okay? The three basic grains that have built civilizations across the planet. One is wheat, which has primarily had its beginning in Europe, okay? Corn. Okay, there are corn-based cultures. These are primarily found in the Western Hemisphere, okay, North and South America. And then there's rice, which can be found, of course, in the Orient, in Asia. Okay, now there are other subgroups, but these are the three basic groups. Here in the United States, when we first got here, when Europeans first got to this continent, they discovered the indigenous peoples, whether it was in South America or North America, were subsisting off of corn. Dried corn ground into meal to make bread, things like what we call hush puppies today and things like that. Tortillas, that kind of thing, is a corn-based culture. We brought our wheat-based culture here. Okay. Now, for the first couple hundred years of European habitation, uh, wheat cultivation wasn't really big because there wasn't too much land that was suitable for growing wheat. Okay. Down here in the south, there was land suitable for growing rice. We did know about rice, but it wasn't until we started moving into the Central Plains that people from Europe said, hey, you know what? We could grow a lot of wheat out here. And what has made this nation, the United States, probably the dominant nation on the planet is not that Americans are uniquely suited for oppression, for oppressing other races. It doesn't do that because in order to do any of that, in order to lead or oppress or whatever it is you want to call it, you need to have fuel for your people. In the United States, this continent, the Central Plains from northern Texas all the way up until the middle of Canada, almost to the about halfway from the Canada-USA border to the Arctic Circle, is just jim dandy suitable for growing both wheat and corn. And that is how this culture, the American culture, came about, using two of the three basic grains. We are a culture that is based on corn and wheat. Okay, where the indigenous people that were here before subsisted mainly on corn, the Europeans subsisted mainly on wheat. Now, there are some anthropological theories that say wheat is the superior food, and that's why Europeans dominated, yada, yada, yada. Leave that up to you. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to use both food groups, both bread cultures, and we're going to use corn, and we're going to use wheat flour. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a bit about the logistics of putting this together. Right now, we're only going to talk about what I'm going to use to cook with, what I'm going to cook, how I'm going to arrange it for transportation. Okay, I'm not going to cook anything. I'm going to tell you the recipe while I'm doing it, but I'm going to package it in such a way that it's easy to transport. There is an old military adage, okay, that says, amateurs study tactics, professionals study logistics. And logistics is knowing what you're going to do, how much you need, how you're going to transport, and the training you need to get the people who are going to use it to be able to use it well. Okay, so this series is going to talk about, number one, we're talking about the cooking logistics, what it's going to take me to make the food I'm going to make. I'm figuring for about a dozen people. There's a cap of 20 people on it. I'm figuring about 12, but there's another adage that when it comes to a living history event, if 100 people say they're going to show up, plan on 50, but cook for 125. Okay, that's kind of what I'm going to do. All right, let's go in the kitchen with the old man and fill up some bags with dry stuff. Okay, so here are your basics. What you're going to need to be carrying in the field if you do it completely basic. Okay, first off is flour. All right, flour, bread used from flour in its most basic form is hard bread. Okay, can you see that? Push it down here so you might be able to see it a little bit better. Hard bread ain't nothing but flour and water and a touch of salt and a little bit of strong language while you're cooking it. Okay? I got a video on how to make hard bread. It was in common use in the field, on the trail, in the 1920s to 1930s, starting from about 1700 or so. Okay, very basic. You can make your bread. I wonder, I got a lot of crap around here. You make your bread a little bit more palatable by adding a leavening agent to it, either baking soda or baking powder. Okay? Sweeten it with sugar and adding a dab of salt. Now, for long-term camping arrangements, carrying this stuff in its bulk form, sack of flour, a sack of sugar, a can of baking soda, a can of baking powder, bag of salt, that is a good idea, okay? But for weekend trips, you got way too much stuff that would be required to mix all of this stuff. In other words, you're going to have to carry all the measuring equipment. So, starting in about the 1920s, manufacturers started realizing that about half the country no longer lived out in the country, which means they had some storage limitations, realistically, in their kitchen. And a lot of these folks, if they wanted to bake bread or other basic bread or other types of bread for their families, they didn't have a place to keep a 50-pound sack of flour and a 10-pound sack of sugar and a 20-pound sack of salt. Okay? And they started mixing these ingredients together in the proper proportions as a ready-made mix, okay? Most common form of that, and we have them today, are muffin mixes and all-purpose baking mix. We'll get into each one of these. And cake mixes, okay? All of these, even though they're modern day goods, okay, they're all made the same way as they were sold in the stores in the cities and the larger towns to homemakers who wanted to make bread, biscuits, cookies, muffins, that kind of thing, okay, but didn't have the storage space or the immediately disposable cash to buy large stocks of bulk goods, okay? So it is perfectly authentic for you to use a modern day cake mix, provided that they are the types of foods that would have been consumed by the people 100 years ago, okay? Let's get into a couple of them, the ones that I use when I go out in the field to bake, and show you how I package them for transportation. Okay, the easiest and tastiest type of bread you can make is a muffin. Okay, muffins are sweet, and you can add fruits to them to make them taste even better. They are good at any meal. Okay, they're a good breakfast supplement, or even a breakfast meal if that's all you got. They're good for dessert at dinner, at supper, and they make a fairly decent lunch. Okay, these muffin mixes that are on the market today, this one here is Martha White. What these have done is taken and put all the dry ingredients required to make a muffin, all of the sugar, all of the leavening, and everything in here except the liquid ingredients. Okay, liquid ingredients for baking could be water, okay, milk, works a lot better. It smooths things out, makes it taste a little bit better. So you're better off making biscuits and anything other than hard bread, really, using milk. Okay, because we're trekking, because we're tramping through the woods, we don't want to be carrying liquid milk. Not only is it heavy at 8 pounds to the gallon, it's bulky, and it'll go bad after a while if you're not carrying a cooler with you. The solution 100 years ago and today is powdered milk or condensed milk. Now, condensed milk is still liquid, it's still heavy, and it comes in a steel can. Okay, and you can't pre-mix it with your ingredients. One thing I will tell you though, however, a little trick I learned when I was just a little pup. If you take an equal amount of milk made from powder and mix it with an equal amount of milk made from condensed milk and mix them together, you'll get something that is like 99% whole milk. Okay, powdered milk takes the fats out. Condensed milk takes some of the sugars out. Put the two of them together, they replace each other. Okay, when you make these biscuits, these muffins with powdered milk, they're just fine. They're a little bit better if you add a little bit of fat, because using powdered milk, you've taken the fats out. Well, you can take care of that using my secret ingredient, or a little dab of butter. Okay, let me show you my secret ingredient. I'm going to have to go over here to the vault and get it out. Here it is. This is my secret ingredient. This is my secret ingredient to all of my baking in the field. Bacon grease. 100% authentic. Everybody, regardless of their station in life 100 years ago, saved all of the fat from cooking bacon. Or they use lard. You could use lard as a fat substitute in your baking. Okay, the recipe calls for butter. That's just fat. Okay, butter tastes better unless you're using bacon grease, because this imparts a bacon flavor into everything you do. I use this to grease my pans, and I also use a little dab of it anytime I use powdered milk. Okay, all right, let's get this ready for the road. I'll put this back in the vault. Okay, so we're going to be traveling. We're going to be hiking, and we want lightweight food, but we want to have muffins. So we're going to go to the store, and we're going to get us a bag of Martha White's blueberry muffin mix. I also have a wild berry muffin mix. Now, with the blueberry muffin mix, I always add extra dried blueberries. Okay. With the wild berry, I add some cranberries. Okay. You can also throw a few raisins in there if you want. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to open the biscuit mix, the muffin mix, and dump it into a paper sack. Okay, now you might say, paper sack, that's not waterproof, it might rain, it might get wet. We'll put all of this stuff inside a waterproof food bag. Okay, drop that in the bag. Throw in a few there they are, a few extra blueberries. Okay, now the instructions on the package say you need a half cup of milk. Okay, like I said, they packaged all the dry ingredients, just not the liquid ingredient. We're going to add a half cup's worth of powdered milk. I'll post a link to a website that will show you the equivalent amounts of powdered milk you should use for any increment of a cup of liquid milk. We need a half cup of liquid milk. I already know that it takes 3 tablespoons. Okay, I made a major error there, and now after reviewing this video I realize why I burned the muffins at Squirrel Camp 2024. And I may try to redeem myself in 2025 by making some muffins there. Haven't decided yet because I'm already set up to make some bread. But the mistake I made was I used enough milk for a cup of milk. You should only use 1 1/2 teaspoons for a half cup milk. I used enough powdered milk to make a cup, but I only added a half cup of water. That meant there was a lot of extra stuff in the batter that caused the outside to burn. Okay, so only 1 1/2 cup of water. I mean, 1 1/2 teaspoons of powdered milk and 1/2 cup of water. Did I make any sense? Sure hope you don't burn your muffins. Powdered milk to make a half cup of milk. So I'm just going to ladle in here 3 tablespoons, 1, 2, 3. Close this up and give it a good shake. Mix those ingredients real good. Okay, now I'll show you what we're going to do now. We're going to fold it up, and what I've done is I have written the instructions on the bag because I'm an old man and I might forget, and everything I put in here is going to be in a brown paper sack, so I got to know what it is. So it's a half cup of water, 400 degrees at 15 minutes, blueberry muffins. Okay, I'll show you how we're going to tie this with a postal knot. I'll show you that when we're done with all of them. Okay, that is the muffins. I'm going to prepare 3 of these and 3 of the wild berries from my trip to the squirrel camp. Okay. Each one of these sacks will fill 2 of these mini loaves. Okay. It will fill 1 muffin pan. 8 or 12, 8 muffins in a muffin pan. Muffin pan's too big to fit in the ovens I'm carrying in the field. Okay, the little tabletop muffin and the shepherd's stove muffin. 3 of these will fit in each one of those. 3 of these will excuse me. 2 of these equals 1 sack of these. Okay, so these 6 tins will make 2 really big muffins. Okay, and I'm talking about really big. They will fill up this entire mini loaf pan, be a little rounded on the top. You cut that in half and you got yourself basically 2 muffins worth of muffin. Understanding what I'm saying? Okay, and when I cook, I'll have to clean these in between baking. I will make 1 run of 3 in each stove of blueberry, and then another run of wild berry, and then they will be out and available for any meal. Okay? All right, let's talk about some other stuff. Okay, there we go. Now, what you just saw was the process I'm going to go through for each piece of baked goods I make. Okay? We already know that I'm going to make 6 mini loaves of berry muffins and 6 loaves of blueberry muffins. I might make them both at the same time, make 3 of one and 3 of the other and serve that at a meal. but those are going to be spaced out over about 2 meals. This is what we're looking for, your logistics logic stream, okay? Know how many people are coming, about, know what portion size you're going to make, know what size cooking vessel you're going to make it in, okay? And then know your recipe, prepare your recipe, okay? Those of you who go the basic route, you're going to mix your own baking soda or baking powder, sugar, and salt into the mix. I like using the ready mixed stuff. Makes things a whole lot easier here at home when I'm trying to pack a whole bunch of other stuff and do a bunch of crap-a-do. For those who have not been with the channel very long, crap-a-do is crap I gotta do. Okay? We know that we're going to make the muffins. I know that we are going to make some of my world famous cornmeal muffins. Not cornbread muffins, cornmeal muffins. That's a recipe that takes 2 parts of cornmeal, 1 part of pancake flour. Great stuff. Throw a little bit of sugar in case everybody likes a little sweet muffin. But anyway, those will be packaged in the same bag, tied up with postal twine. I will cook those in these tins here, okay, these loaf pans. I can fit 2, 3 into each oven, okay. I can, if I want to cook, no, I take that back. It's 2 in each oven, 2 in the tabletop oven and 2 in the shepherd stove. So I can cook 4 loaves of bread at a time, and I don't need that much, okay? It's about 8 inches long. If I cut the bread into 1-inch slices, I can serve each man 1 good-sized slice of bread for each meal. So for each meal, if I cook 2 of these, everybody gets some bread and there's some left over, okay? Some left over in the morning means that we can make toast, okay? This is something I've never tried this over the stove, like the shepherd stove. This is one of the things we're going to test out when we test out the shepherd stove is this thing here. The bread that I make is not regular bread like you buy in a store, okay? It makes some very good toast, but it's very thick and somewhat dense. It's not like hard bread, but it's not regular bread either. So these 2 things go together, and I will show you how I'm going to pack this stuff here in a minute. I'm going to break down the toaster to its shipping configuration here for the time being. Okay, the world famous cornmeal muffins, I may make it as a cornmeal bread. In these tins here, I've got 2 of these. I can fit 1 in the shepherd stove. I can't fit any in the tabletop stove, but for the tabletop stove, I've got these little muffin tins. 7 will fit in here. I can cut this into thirds, and I should have about 6 to 9 portions in this and 7 portions in this. And again, we've got 16 portions, and that would be 1 meal. And I can cook 1 in the shepherd stove, 1 in the tabletop stove. Okay? We'll also be making some biscuits, and instead of milk, powdered milk, I'm going to use powdered buttermilk. Yes, there is such a thing as powdered buttermilk. I recommend it. Grab you some. You can make some, if you like buttermilk biscuits and anything, buttermilk pancakes, it's a good thing to use with that kind of flour to add that little extra flavor. Okay? All right. Now, in every task, there are implied tasks. In other words, in my young career, if the sergeant told me that I needed to clean the floors in the upstairs of the barracks. Okay, that's the task I've been given. The implied task is that I go to the closet, I get a bucket, I get a mop, I get a broom, I get some water in the bucket, and some cleaning solution. Those are all the implied tasks, okay? The sergeant doesn't need to tell me those, okay? The implied tasks with baking, what I'm baking is, number one, preparing the recipes, which we already did. We're going to do them in one meal packages that will fit in any of the vessels that we're going to be used to cook in. And I need to clean as well. That's the implied task. Okay? Prepare the recipe, prepare the pans for cooking, cook, and then clean. Okay? So for cleaning, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you right now, I'm going to show you how I'm going to pack the stuff that goes directly to cooking. Okay? Stuff I would take with me whether I was cooking on the shepherd stove or cooking in a cabin, in a wood stove in a cabin where I don't have. I have this very nice little tiny period correct duffel bag. I love this thing. It's got two ways of closure. You can pull it on a drawstring like you would a regular duffel bag, but it's also got this drawstring down here that you can tie around. Okay. Again, it's about 100 years old. For cleaning, the implied task is get something to clean with. Okay? Period correct. Okay? One is a sponge. You can get a natural sponge and clean with that. But a more common thing is towels made out of a material called huck. This is a huck towel. Let me get that, see if you can see the texture of this, okay? It's got a very coarse weave, and it's got a lot of bumps and ridges, okay? That means it is somewhat abrasive, and for the type of cleaning that we're going to be doing on the cooking stuff, the bowls and the pans, this is good, okay? Because I can get in there with my finger, and I can rub it and get all that stuff out without scratching anything or carrying anything heavier than this towel. To dry with, again, period correct, flour sack material. This is the remnants of a flour sack. Waste not, want not. So I'm going to take a couple of these, put them in the bottom of the duffel bag, and then another implied task of baking, mixing your recipe. I have something to mix them in. I got a 4-bowl set of enamelware here. Enamelware is probably the best thing you can take to mix in the field. It's easy to clean and fairly durable. We're going to set that in the bottom of the sack to give it some structure. Okay, and then we're going to take our toaster and we're going to put another towel in on top of the bowls. Hopefully they won't rattle quite so much. That will go there, and another towel on top of that so that the stuff that we put on there, again, cut down on the rattling. Okay, we've got recipes that require a cup and a quarter of water to be added to it to make the milk and the batter. So the implied task, get the measuring cups, okay? And I've got a 1/2 cup and a 1 cup measure, okay? That's all I need. If I need a cup and a quarter, I'll just fill one of these halfway up, okay? You're going to guesstimate your water anyway. Another thing that you need to carry with you is a sack of nothing but flour, your regular flour, your self-rising flour, and another one of your pancake flour. That way, if you're mixing your batter and you add a little bit too much water, you can throw some flour in there, kind of get it a little bit stiffer, more like batter. Okay. A sifter. Okay. Your batter will be smoother. Your muffins especially will be finer if you sift your flour first. It also helps to mix the flour and the powdered milk. Okay, we'll put that in there. A pair of tongs. This is to move the toast around on the toaster. Okay, that's going to be sitting on top of a stove. On top of that stove, probably going to be somewhere around 400 degrees. I don't want to be hovering my hand over that, trying to grab a piece of bread. I want to be able to reach down and grab that bread and pull it up. Okay. Also, I might need to move a coal or two around. Okay, and we have a slotted spoon. Okay, for mixing our batter with. That lays in there. And then one of the most important things, a clock. Now, we're not going to set the alarm on this, but we're going to keep an eye on it. When we sit down and we know this, when the oven's got to temperature, and I know I put my stuff in, and I know it needs to cook for about 15 minutes, I keep an eye on this, and all of a sudden realize I've been talking too much, and the biscuits are probably burnt. So that will go in there, again, wrapped in towels. And you notice I got a lot of towels in here. I'm going to have a lot more. We'll do another video on the contents of the chuck box. But this, let me see if I got anything right now. This is the cooking implements. Okay, this is what I need to do for the mixing. Okay, the cooking implements, the cooking vessels. Okay, the mini loaves, I'll have 3 of these and 2 of these maybe. Okay, bringing these if my cobbler recipe works out. Okay, if it doesn't work out, I'll leave these at home. Okay, those pans will actually fit inside the stove. Some of them will fit inside the tabletop stove. Others will fit inside the oven of the shepherd stove. Okay, when I get that packed, I'll show it to you once we've tested the stove. We'll do it, like I said, we'll do another video on the contents of the chuck box. Okay, now this video says it's part 1. It's part 1 of an older video series. I'm only going to do this one video because the rest of it has to do with the shepherd stove, and I'm not going to be taking the shepherd stove to squirrel camp. The videos I'm fixing to go out to the field and shoot have to do with another stove that I'll be using that's a little bit easier to carry. And that's what we'll be going, you'll be seeing next. When I start baking again on video, I'll be using that stove. Got it in a trade from James Bender. I will likely fill that chuck box up and ship it to Sean Dyer so that I don't have to carry it and the dog in the back seat of the big steel tent on my way up there. Okay, this is part 1. This is just getting ready to bake, just getting ready to get the recipes together, get the material together, and get our mixing stuff. Okay, we are poised, we are right on the cusp, we are on the edge, we are looking down into the abyss of starting the stove. Okay, now starting the stove in our logistics train, again, we're looking at, this is the training portion of the logistics. Okay, I've got to learn about the stove. I've got to learn how quickly it comes to temperature, how long it will stay at temperature. The only way I really have, a couple ways of modulating the temperature in either oven. Okay, and that is moving coals around inside the oven. If I need it to be hotter in the oven of the shepherd stove, I move the coals back. If I need it to be hotter underneath the tabletop stove, which will be setting on top, well, then I move coals back. If it's too hot for both of them, I pull coals out. We'll go over all of that when I run the stove, okay? All right, I hope I haven't blathered on too long. If you are interested, I'm selling these towels on my Facebook page, Vico Expedition Outfitters. You can get to it. There's a link to it in the comments section. You can search for it in Facebook. You can go to Bannerman's Camp and look on there, and you'll find somewhere where I've made a post on that. I sell stuff like this. I'm buying like maybe 6 or 8 for myself, but I have to buy a package of 24. I'll sell the other 16 rather than have them gather dust in the garage. Okay? All right. We're on this video right now. I got to start looking at putting the stove together, and we'll see you down the trail.